Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by some pretty amazing people to do what we do. Now, 10 years in the making, we're a decade old. It's crazy. We had our big shindig last week relative to this recording. Indeed, it was so great. But we are kicking off a new phase of the Movie Bears podcast now that we're a decade old. But I don't know that we're doing anything different.
Is this episode 460? Is this episode 1? You be the judge. It's episode 460.
Indeed. Well, we're going to be having a discussion around a pretty popular movie this week. Avatar: The Way of Water came out from Dr. James Cameron. It will be interesting to hear the thoughts of my co-hosts because Jim and I didn't really talk too much, and I have no idea what you think about this movie, Will. But before we get to that, I should probably introduce you guys and give you an opportunity to say hello. So Jim Pugliafico, of course, as always, is here. How are you?
I'm doing okay. We're in the throes of the holiday crunch, so there's always a lot going on this time of year, at least for us. That's not necessarily a bad thing, just a lot going on with preparations for celebrations and vacations if we have them. But we've got a little bit of time off coming up, so I'm doing good. But I'm still, this is a great time of year for movies. There's a lot out. This is a big one we're going to talk about today, so I'm looking forward to that with you guys to see what you really thought of this and maybe hear from some other people and what they thought.
Indeed. In fact, we have some people in the live chat with us already. Ben Woolley. Hey, Ben. He says, good evening, sexy bears, with a cute little bear-faced emoticon. Hey, Ben. Welcome. Glad to have you here with us. Will Lindis is also here. Can't do the show without Will. Will, how are you?
Hey, doing pretty good. I'm excited for us to talk about this one. This is not only am I excited to talk about the film that we're going to be talking about today, I'm also excited because the original version of this film came out before we started this podcast. We just did our 10-year anniversary, but this is the 13th year of the Avatar franchise. So I have no idea, honestly, where you two fall on the original either. So I think, and we certainly haven't really discussed it outside of maybe in passing at best over these last 10 years. So I think there's a lot of unobtainium for us to mine out of this film franchise for today's show. I'm just excited. I'm excited to talk movies with y'all.
Be fun to talk about.
You want to hear a fun story about the original Avatar movie?
I do.
Yeah.
All right. Fire up the Wayback Machine. The first Avatar movie was one of the first movies Jim and I saw together.
Really?
Yep. It was 2009, which was the year we met. We were dating long distance for like a year and a half, something like that. And Jim came out to Tucson, and we had a movie date to go see that.
I'm
film.
seeing Jim
I live
nodding.
in Tucson.
I'm seeing
Jim Albuquerque. I'm sorry. Jim came to Albuquerque.
Jim's nodding knowingly. This is a story that's old hat for him.
I think I remember that.
We went to the Century Rio in Albuquerque, which was my home base movie theater. Yeah. So it's been a hot minute. So
did y'all see it in 3D back then, or 2D?
We did.
Probably
3D.
Yeah.
3D.
That's another thing we need to talk about.
The 3D glasses date back in 2009. Yeah.
Now, I think, though, that was before we started saving our 3D glasses. Because at some point, either around the time of the first Avatar or after that, 3D movies there was a huge wave of 3D films. Like almost every big release that was either an action or something came out in 3D. And they all had whether it be a Star Wars film or whatever, and they all had 3D glasses, and a lot of them had like themed 3D glass
Mm.
with little, characters on the frame or whatever. So we have like piles of 3D glasses from different movies, but I don't think we have any from the original Avatar. I don't know if
We don't. We have
Glee
Man of
3D.
we have Glee 3D. We have Man of Steel. We have 3D glasses from the Hobbit movies. Oh,
Yep.
they re-released Star Wars Episode 1, so we have Pod Racer 3D glasses. We have
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3D glasses. It's ridiculous. We have so many that we'll
So-
probably never use.
Were it me, I really like doing like shadow boxes because like I like displaying stuff, but I also like displaying it in like that 3-dimensionality.
Yeah.
So it almost feels
That's
like a shadow
very
box.
meta. That's very meta, Will.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Like that'd be a fun way to display them. If you don't plan on breaking them out for home viewing or what have you.
Yeah. Maybe we'll send them to somebody on Etsy and they can make something cool for us. I'll have to figure it out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That would be that. If one of you has, so you're coming up on 13 years together. So obviously the 15-year anniversary is right around the corner. That would be a great anniversary present for one of you to do for the other. So
I like that idea.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll
We
set a
actually
Siri
already
reminder.
did do a little something like that. We took the reason I mentioned Glee 3D is because we got a poster of the movie, put it in a poster frame, and then glued the 3D glasses kind of to the side of the frame and made like a little display for that one. But
that's fun.
Yeah.
That's
we
cool.
don't have like shadow boxes for all of them yet. Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll do something like that with the 3D glasses we do have.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. But we didn't save the 3D glasses from seeing the new Avatar movie. They were just your standard,
bare framed
recycle them at the end.
Yeah.
Bare framed glasses. Yeah. But it was Jim, I agree with you. I think it's something we need to talk about in our review of the film, in our discussion. So, speaking of which, are you guys ready to get into it?
Hold on. Let me put my Three Bears glasses on. All right.
Put my goggles on.
Yeah.
There you go.
Let's do the thing.
All right. Listen, we are going to review Avatar: The Way of Water. Our format usually involves about 10 to 15 minutes of non-spoilery talk. So just our initial impressions of the movie. Did we like it? Did we not like it? And then we will, of course, take things to Spoiler Town, but we'll give you a fair warning before we get in the car and go over the river and through the woods to Grandma Spoiler's house we go.
The ocean.
Or the ocean. So if you haven't yet seen Avatar: The Way of Water, don't fret. Hang out with us for another 15 minutes, and then we'll let you know when it's time to jettison, go see the movie, and then of course come on back for our full-on spoilery review of the film. All of that said, we're doing this thing. Here we go. Our discussion of Avatar: The Way of Water. All right. So, Jim, do us a favor, briefly set this one up since it, has been 13 years since an entry in the Avatar world. What is this movie and what are your, spoiler-free, of course, initial thoughts?
Sure. Well, I'll get right into it with spoiler-free stuff, or as spoiler-free as we can, by just probably reading the IMDb plot summary. But this movie basically picks up I would say several years. It's not clear how many years, or maybe it is clear. I just didn't pay attention. How many years after the end of the original Avatar? I don't know if it's in real time. We'll have to talk about that a little bit. But anyway, our main character, Jake Sully from the first movie, now lives with his newfound family formed on the extrasolar moon Pandora. Once a familiar threat returns to finish what was previously started, Jake must work with Neytiri and the army of the Na'vi race to protect their home and his family. So that's what this movie's about. So yeah, it picks up pretty much several years on Pandora, several years after um, the end of the previous movie, and um, this one also stars um, Sam Worthington, right, as Jake Sully. We have Sigourney Weaver is back. Kate Winslet, CCH Pounder is in here. Stephen Lang. Other familiar faces like Edie Falco is back, and Jermaine Clement is in this one. I don't remember if he was in the first one or not, but there's some familiar faces in here that made it more fun to watch. So we have a movie here that's 3 hours and 12 minutes long. That's been, regardless of how you feel about that going in, that's just what we're up for in this movie. And I was surprised how much I liked many parts of this film. I'll say that for me, this experience was, um, you know, throughout the whole film, I don't think I was really that bored one time. This movie is technologically a technological step, I think, in filmmaking, right? James Cameron has given us here. There's no doubt about it. Visually, in terms of visual filmmaking, call it special effects, call it some practical effects, call it, visual effects, whatever. This movie is so technologically advanced, both sound wise and image wise. I think it's incredible to look at. It's a wonderful it's a wonderful film to look at. We'll talk a little bit about some of the whiz bang stuff that went on here. I know there was some high frame rate going on in certain parts, and we can talk about how we felt about that a little bit. I have some thoughts on it. Probably not as strong as some others, but I mostly like this film. I think it's worth seeing in a big screen. If you're gonna go see it in a big screen. I don't think in terms of the story, there's not much new here. In terms of, like, if you look at the first Avatar and this Avatar back to back, there's still pretty much, there's a couple of new, I guess, conflicts, wrinkles that are added here, some of which I found kind of interesting. But you know, again, we'll get into more in spoilers, but generally, this movie kept my interest for the whole 3 hours. Didn't bore me, and that's saying a lot for most action movies. For me, like, if you put me in a 2-hour Transformers movie, and I might be nodding off. But in this 3-hour and 12-minute Avatar movie, there was enough eye candy and interesting stuff going on, even though the plot was generally not not that. I will say. Not super interesting. I think there were enough parts of it were interesting to keep me going. So this is a recommend to see. I think a lot of people have seen it already. A lot of people are going to see it. I think it's worth seeing in the theaters. Not going to win any, not going to be on any year-end lists for me probably, but worth seeing.
All right. So we got a recommend from Jim. Thank you so much for weighing in with your thoughts, babe. Will, how about for you? How did this movie hit you?
Oh boy. So the first movie for this one was one that I've always been a little confused by, right? Like, it is the first Avatar, 2009, is a stunning visual piece. It launched 3D. It just absolutely stunning to look at, but it felt like such a retread of so many things I've seen before, and it sort of did the stranger in a strange world trope, almost like beat that horse to death. It wasn't a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it was one that just never really stuck with me. So of course, here we go again, and I've not been too verbally excited about this one. I think I've probably even mentioned that here on the show before. So I'm glad to say I'm really wrong, and I super loved this movie. Yeah, I decided to pull a Brad on this one. Yeah, I really liked this one. I feel like the major change from the first one to this one, and it's small, but I think it's also substantial, is that in Avatar, it really does follow like these humans who are using these Avatar vessels to try to connect with this, this race that is sort of exoticized and sort of seen as this like, I don't know, this like kind of like this perfect race that we're dealing with. And so it doesn't really feel like a lived-in world. It's a beautiful world, but it doesn't feel like a lived-in world. This one changes the perspective. All of the main characters in this one are Navi or part of like this group, and so the humans are more or less, in a more antagonistic role. Because of that, the culture and as they're traveling around, it all just feels much more like organic, and it feels like it's exploring it in a way that the first one really couldn't. That difference alone, just narratively, made all the difference in the world to me. This is a beautiful movie. It looks great. I think that we've seen a lot of water effects on screen in movies this year, and I don't think that any movie has done water effects on screen this year as well as this one. Everything's crisp, clear, beautiful. There were some moments where I struggled a little bit with the 3D. I saw it in 3D, and I'll talk about what those are, maybe in a little bit. And also the runtime, I was never bored either. And in fact, if anything, by the time that third act hit, I was still edge of my seat. And that's saying a lot for a 3+ hour movie. But I also understand that that's going to be hard for people to sit through. This is a strong recommend for me. See it in IMAX, see it in 3D. And if you haven't seen it yet, and I know there's a lot of people who haven't, this is probably a pretty good one to see over the holidays with family. I think this is a pretty accessible film to a large swath of audiences, minus of course kids who a 3-hour movie if anything would be hard for. But yeah, I like this one. I went from being lukewarm on the first one to I'm all in on this one, and dare I say it, the fact that there's going to be more of these potentially and probably, I'm excited for that. And that's not a place where I was expecting to be at this point in the year. So I mean, mission accomplished, I guess.
All right. Big recommend from Will. I gotta be honest with you guys. This movie was not a good one for me. There's no reason this movie needed to be 3 hours and 12 minutes long. I think it's pretty ridiculous. There are sequences in this film that drag and drag and drag. They unpack things and unpack things. Then they spend a lot of time packing them all back up and working toward a resolution, only to blow things open all over again and like have a whole fucking hour and a half more of shit to go. I liked the first movie, but it's been 13 years and I don't really care about any of the characters anymore. We don't have human Jake Sully anymore, so no hairy-chested actor goodness for Brad, which is fine. But I mean, you're just very cognizant that like everything you're seeing with the Na'vi is like computer-generated imagery. I'm having like George Lucas flashbacks to the prequel trilogy from Star Wars. The environments, like everything is green screened, even when they're fucking standing on a rock. Like the environment behind them is just one giant green screen fest. I felt like the first movie did a much better job of blending live action human stuff with the Na'vi stuff. It seems like this movie, I don't know, man. Like when the Na'vi are on screen with humans, it's very obvious that I'm looking at CGI people right next to humans. It just doesn't blend very well. Yes, there are some stunning visuals here. Very cool that we, got to see all the ocean life. I liked a lot of that. I think the ocean scenes were done way better than the ocean scenes in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. But then again, this movie is meant to be a little more fantastical than that is. So I think that explains some creative choices to like have things be very bright underwater instead of very dark and murky. I guess that's just how water on Pandora works. There are lights in the water somewhere. But I don't know. This story feels like a very tired retread of like fucking Fern Gully meets Titanic meets Poseidon Adventure meets Dances with Wolves. I feel like I've seen this movie 1,000 times over, and with a 3 hour and 12-minute runtime, it just I don't know. It just drags. I was waiting for this movie to do something new. I was waiting for it to really hit me with something kind of brilliant and out there, and instead we got a rehash of the first movie. And then the main characters make some choices that really leave me scratching my head, especially after the choices they make in the first movie, and defending their home and uniting, and spoilers for the first Avatar. They take a lot of that and just throw it right out the fucking window, and it feels like a big reset. So I didn't hate this movie. It probably sounds like I did, but I'm just calling some things out that Will, you mentioned that you're like excited and on board for the next 8 or whatever number fucking we're gonna get of these movies.
Let's say next 2, just to be fair.
Okay, okay.
Go from there.
For whatever it
3
is.
more. I think.
3, okay. I don't even think we need 3 more movies. Like we'll talk about it in spoilers, but like this movie reaches a certain conclusion. I realize that the movie is trying to like unpack things and set up enough bullshit, for 5 total movies, but I don't know. I'm not on board for the next Avatar movie. I just feel like it's going to be another rehash of a rehash of a rehash already. I also want to talk about 2 things: 3D and high frame rate. I haven't seen a 3D movie in 5 years, maybe.
I know.
It's been a long time,
Yeah.
and I actually found the 3D to be really annoying, and it pulled me out of the movie a lot. I don't know how I used to see so many 3D movies. 2, the high frame rate was a fucking choice. It's one thing if it's like Peter Jackson style, where like you choose to make your whole movie in that high frame rate, your eyes kind of adapt to it, you adjust. But this movie chooses to put high frame rate sequences in, blended, with non-high frame rate sequences. And the net effect for me was that like every time we'd switch into high frame rate, everything looked incredibly uncanny valley, and it just pulled me right out of the movie. I don't understand why if they were going to go the high frame rate route, why not just embrace it for the whole thing instead of going in and out and in and out? And it didn't make sense. Some sequences are in high frame rate, some are not. Like, why focus on people walking through the forest in high frame rate instead of having like, I don't know, a high frame rate battle or something? It just seems weird the moments they chose to showcase the high frame rate with. So, it was fine. I was whelmed by it. I guess I was entertained by it. It was pretty, but it's not something that's on my rewatch list, and it definitely won't be making my end of year list. So, but yeah, if you're looking for something to do over the holidays and you have 3 fucking hours that you can't think of anything better to do with, then yeah, absolutely go see this movie. But if you're like me and it's busy and you'd rather spend time with your family doing actual like fun, cool stuff, maybe not go see this movie.
Yeah, I think one of the issues I have with the movies, and I'm surprised, Brad, a little bit to hear you say it, is like this movie felt like a lot of times like I was watching a video game cutscene. Like almost the whole movie feels like a video game cutscene. The way it's, I don't know if it's the animation style, or like I could totally see like this. A lot of what's in this movie being a cutscene from like an Avatar video game. The whole thing seemed very video gamey to me, and you know me, I'm not really a gamer, but you are, so I was surprised to see you call out some of that stuff, like the way it was it was presented and that stuff, because for me, I think once I accepted it though, like it was fine, you know what I mean? Like once I got my mind past it, I didn't think about it the rest of
But the thing with video games is video game cutscenes don't have real people and fake CGI people like interacting with each other in the environment. Like everything is animated for a cutscene. You know what I mean? Unless it's like,
anyway.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if I sit down to play Horizon Forbidden West, I'm very cognizant that everything I'm watching is computer generated, right? Like it is computer graphics. But there's not like disparate elements that are like competing against each other to like create a visual effect. It's not a blend. So plus with a video game, you get like 10 minutes of cutscene, and then I have no idea who the fuck is at our door. But
Amazon.
with a video game, you get like, 10 or 15 minutes maybe of a cutscene, but then you get to play for an hour. You get to do things. You're engaged in the story. Sorry, we have carolers at our door.
Oh,
I can hear them singing.
huh. I don't know what to do about
Well, you're
that.
near the
since we're
front of
li-
the house. so
I
you
mean,
can-
I almost feel like I don't know if this is doable, Brad, but I almost feel like are either of you on your laptop? You should just go take the laptop and take the carolers to the show. Is
If
that
I
doable?
wasn't- I'm
Take the show to
not
the
on a
caroler.
laptop, unfortunately. I'm on my PC. I wish I was on
Yeah.
my Mac.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Wow.
I'm pulling up our video camera feed.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because I heard the they haven't sponsored us, so I won't say which company it is. Video doorbell feed chime come through a second ago.
Yeah.
The
I
Ding
think
Dong
they're
Company.
I think they're leaving. I just heard someone yell "Happy Christmas."
Aw.
Aw.
Sorry we missed it.
Aw. Let's see.
But yeah,
Hold on.
interesting.
Yeah.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Here they come up to the door.
What are we doing?
Oh my god, there's like a whole ton of them. They're practicing.
Yeah. Me.
They have no idea they're being recorded.
I'm sure they might.
Here we go.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, back to hating on
I was about
Avatar.
to say, can that just be the show? That should just be like
Screw all that Christmas
Yeah.
love stuff.
no. I was gonna say forget Avatar. Like, and this is coming as someone who
Yeah.
this will make my end of year list, but still, like, put it aside. I want to talk about the carolers. That's cool.
Well, Will, I'm glad to hear that this movie, potentially will make your list. I know things are subject to change until you
Of
actually
course, yeah.
create your list and video, but yeah, I'm a little jealous of your experience, I guess. I wish I was a little more positive about it. Like I said, it was fine, but man, I don't know that I have another 3-hour Avatar movie in me. And word on the street is the next one's going to be 4 hours with an intermission, and I can't,
Wow.
guys. I can't.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I am on board with another one based off of my experience with this one, but that can change, man. Like, we go back to, and I think we should probably not take this one too far out of the box, but I went from the first Pacific Rim, one of my favorite, like, blockbuster type movies ever. The second one was dog shit. And so, you treat each one as it comes. I was lukewarm on the first Avatar. I really liked this one. I don't know where it's going to go. And 4 hours feels like a big ask, a big ask. 3 hours is a big ask. I was able to like this one. I feel like if it was a minute longer, I could have started tipping into not liking this one. I still enjoyed all of it, but add an extra 40, 45 minutes. I don't know. I think that becomes a big ask.
We'll get into it in spoilers, but the story did feel like a rehash of both the previous Avatar and many other properties that we could probably name. But when we get to the end of this movie, I have to ask myself, what was that all for? Like, what? Where did we go? Where did we start, and where did we go? Like, what in the big picture of Pandora? And what's going on with the human race and with the Na'vi race and with everything on Pandora. like where did this 3-hour adventure lead us to? So we'll get into that in spoilers. I'm looking forward to talking about that with you guys.
I think now is probably an opportune time. Let's make
do
that
it.
jump.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So spoilers for Avatar: The Way of Water are about to happen. Just be aware of that. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I'm awkwardly rambling to give you a little bit of time to hit that uh, exit button if you're watching live. If you were listening through the magic of digital tape delay, feel free to skip ahead to the end using the time index. We got some plugs coming your way you're not going to want to miss. And then come on back after you've seen the movie, listen to our full-on spoilery review. But all of that said, spoilers are officially fair game. Kevin is in the chat. Hey, Kevin, he
Hi,
says
Kevin.
he's seen it.
Hey,
He's
Kevin.
good. Awesome. You are ready to rock. But for everybody else, if you haven't, do the thing that you got to do to protect you. But let's get into some spoilers. Where do you guys want to start?
Well, I mean, I'll just start where I kind of let in. And, this movie, the plot of this movie seems almost like a personal vendetta, right? For Quaritch or Quadich, whatever his name is,
Mhm.
who has now put himself in, recreated himself as a Na'vi being, and they are on a mission to take out Jake Sully. It's not super clear why, other than as revenge for stuff that he did in the first movie. They feel
he killed him in the first movie.
he's
Like,
gone rogue. Yeah, he's gone rogue. He killed. So it's personal, right? It's a guy on guy, and the whole human race, the whole human military enterprise is behind this one guy's personal personal mission to take out Jake Sully, which is kind of weird, right?
In the
If you
movie's
think about the big
defense,
picture,
Yeah.
is that the big picture?
in the movie's defense, they do say that Jake Sully and the Na'vi were responsible for kicking all of the humans off of Pandora,
Yeah.
and they decided to come back to Pandora in force to we're in spoilers now, get all the
Yes.
whale brain juice that makes you not age. But they know they're going to have to deal with the Na'vi and Jake Sully, and that's why they have cloned this Colonel guy and put together his team. They are specifically there to take out the Jake Sully threat and take the Na'vi off the table from being a problem.
And it's not I would say that the film sort of sets up. This is not the only story that's happening on this planet. We see that Jake Sully is sort of like a guerrilla warfare leader for the Na'vi against like the first set of human incursion after they come back. But humans have built a bunch of bases there, and they're doing this like massive whale hunting and all of this expedition. So this is a smaller story. This isn't the full force of the military. This is sort of like, we know we got to deal with that guy too, because he has been influential and he knows our stuff. And we've got this one guy who we can pretty much just rev up and send that way. So let's just let that happen. So I think that it's less the full might of the military and more just they want to deal with it, and they know that they can send Quaritch off to deal with it. And from his perspective, I feel like if I took someone under my wing, took them to another planet, and they immediately defected, and they and their new wife murdered me, and now I was back to life and knew that, there's a possibility I would hold a grudge there. So I get both the big stakes and the personal stakes here. For me, it's
I don't remember all of the motivations for Jake Sully killing that guy in the first movie, but I'm sure it had something to do with them wanting to wipe out the Na'vi, right? And he had to stop that, right? So this is a movie. The big picture is about human colonization, right?
Mhm.
Is that kind of the big picture, or the big planetary picture here? Is humans have come to Pandora because Earth, they've fucked over Earth so many times that they pretty much don't have a place to live anymore, or it's dying, or it's already dead. And Pandora holds like a whole new world, Garden of Eden kind of place. and like us humans, we're not really, other than Jake Sully and his clan, not really interested in living in harmony with the native species. I will say they just want to take it over and like basically make it the next Earth with more bioluminescence or something. But so that's what kind of the overall picture is. I don't see how this movie necessarily made any progress on that front, on the big global picture front. It was more focused on the bad guy versus good guy and his family. So it's almost like more of like a fast and furious kind of like family is the key. Every time they mentioned family in the movie, I leaned over to Brad. I'm like, oh God, this is Fast and Furious vibes.
So
Big
you know what's
time.
really funny? You mentioned that, but I was just looking at the cast list, and Vin Diesel is in this fucking thing. It
No
doesn't
way.
list what I'm looking at. Doesn't list who he played, but it shows him as being part of the cast of the film.
Really?
Huh.
Michelle Yeoh.
They only brought him in to say that one word, family.
Michelle Yeoh is also in the movie as a doctor, which I didn't see her, but
I didn't see her or him either. I wonder if, because they filmed parts of 3 and I think 4 at the same time, I wonder if that cast list also maybe includes some people that were part of this shoot but maybe haven't appeared yet.
Maybe we'll feature more in the next movie.
Yeah, because they're not on the IMDb list, but
it's specifically. I just Googled cast Avatar: The Way of Water, and Google like basically pulls from different resources. But it has Vin Diesel and Michelle Yeoh listed here.
Interesting.
Specifically for The Way of Water. So I don't know, but I just thought that was interesting.
I think that for me, what I think works so well is that this is a big picture. Big picture. Yeah, it's a story of colonialism. Spoiler: all of these movies are going to be about colonialism, and that's okay. I mean, when you have a franchise, you're always going to have like a big overarching theme. You mentioned Fast and Furious is all about family. When you talk about like damn near any like episode of Doctor Who. There's usually a theme of sort of like equilibrium and harmony across like time and people and sort of finding the right way amidst things, and so I don't mind that being the overarching one, especially when the sub story is one of a much more personal story of this family who is sort of like 1 foot in one culture and 1 foot in another culture. And actually, I guess a third foot in another culture here when they relocate to the water clan area.
They brought the shit to those poor folks, the reef people, right? They brought their shit all with them when they decided to, hey, we're going to camp out here on your beach. And
but that shit was going to hit them anyway, eventually. I think what this
probably.
did was, I mean, this sort of sets the, the question of, if you know that someone's in trouble, do you turn them away or do you invite them into your home?
Yeah.
And that's a tough question. I'm not saying that, like
it's a slam dunk.
It's a slam dunk, but it is one of those things that that you think about kind of like how that applies to sort of some real world stuff. But I like that we got to see, again, if this is a colonialism story, this is a story where the Na'vi, the family, the main group of it, they get to have the limelight. I understood more about Na'vi culture in this movie than I did in all of the first one because I was seeing it from their perspective, not like the outsider's perspective, and I appreciated that, and I like that as the direction of where these go, and I hope it stays that way. We're obviously still going to see humans; they're part of the story, but I like this point of view of the Sully family.
But we did have an outsider perspective in that the Sullys are outsiders to whatever the name of the water people. I forget what their name was. Yeah. And they're having to like beat the people and ingratiate themselves to the people and not do things wrong. And they're very much operating on the periphery of the water people until they sort of learn and become assimilated. But one of the reasons I say this is a retread of the first movie takes all this time to set up, Sully coming to the Na'vi in his avatar, being the stranger in a strange land, the outsider. He eventually reveals the truth about himself. He's accepted by the Na'vi. He unites the Na'vi people. They sync up with Heowa, their god tree, and they are like, we're going to stand against these humans and like fight and win the day. And then in this movie, Sully and his family decide to run away, which is a very curious choice. They think it's going to protect their Na'vi people, but then, hey, look, more Na'vi people. Let's go hang out with them, knowing that they're targets, right? And that they're going to be targeted. Sully knows that the humans have advanced technology. Like, it's not that fucking hard to like scan for life forms, you know what I mean? And see that there are other Na'vi on the planet. It just, we get into this whole sequence of like, now we're with the water people. Now let's do the water people things. Oh, now let's interact with the water people's tribes' children and figure out what's going on with them. And let's go have an adventure. And like, it's fine if that was the first movie in the sequence. But I felt like I was watching Jake and now his family have to go through all the bullshit from the first movie all over again. And it feels like such a delaying tactic to like push out the final battle of this movie, right? Like we just see them do everything they did in the first movie, including connecting with the god tree that this time is underwater, and this time Sigourney Weaver's Jesus daughter has magic powers to control. I don't know. It feels like treading and retreading water from the movies.
Pun intended.
You caught what I did. From the first movie's story. So I think that, like, I don't know, if I was writing this movie, they would find the water people, and the water people would be like, you should come join us. We'd love to have you. And they should be like, yeah, no, there's like a guy chasing us that's going to like wipe out all of you. It would be terrible if we stayed. And then they're like, okay, we'll keep going. We'll see you later. Bye. That feels a lot more realistic to me. I think you still could have had the focus on the family. I think you still could have had like discovering, that the super whales were intelligent. You still could have had so much of that, and taken a lot of characters off the board that we didn't need. And honestly, cut out an hour and a half of this fucking movie, and it still would have made sense.
Sully doesn't seem, at least through most of this movie, he doesn't seem interested in resolving the conflict that has been created in the first movie. He's definitely in flee mode, right? He's fleeing, and he either does or doesn't know that it's going to bring danger to other people, right? He's trying to protect his family, but in the end, in his mind, he's got to know that this is going to bring danger at some point. I was kind of surprised at certain parts of the movie that he didn't reach out and try to resolve this on his own at some point, with the dude chasing him, or the humans, or something. It's just a strange. It leaves me questioning, like, where is this whole series going? Like, what's the end point in Cameron's mind for where this thing is going? Like, how does he envision it? Like, is everybody going to live in harmony, at some point, or is the whole thing going to implode? I don't know.
After we have Avatar: The Way of Water, and Avatar: The Way of Air, and Avatar: The Way of Earth, and Avatar: The Way of Fire, then we'll have Avatar: The Way of Avatar, and bring all four of those elements together. All of the Na'vi
sounds like another.
No, you're missing you're missing energy bending.
Oh, and blood
that'll
bending.
be the last
during
one.
the full moon.
Bending, during the full moon.
Right, right. In Avatar: Way of the Moon, that's where we'll get the blood bending. Yeah.
Okay.
I will say that I did feel something in this movie. Like, I thought the middle sequence with the whales was middle to end.
Yeah, I would say middle section. Yeah.
I thought was really good, and I really thought there might be more of James Cameron, or the creators of this film, trying to emphasize kind of the wonders of the natural world, even though it's a different planet or whatever, right? And I think they did it visually a lot. I mean, I think there's a lot of visual stuff to like say, oh, that's wonderful, like, but I don't know that I think there was a message buried in some very, very disturbing and sad stuff that happened in the middle of this movie with the killing of the whales, or whale in particular, and the calf. I thought that was like super effective in terms of getting some emotions going for the audience. I cared, I think, more for the whale and her calf than any other character in this movie, to be
Well,
honest.
they've been this. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I thought that part of the movie was disturbing but beautifully done. I just wish, I don't know. I don't know if people are going to watch that and say, well, and don't know that really happens, like that shit really happens in real life, or not. I don't know if the connection was there.
Well, I mean, James Cameron is, I mean, he's a filmmaker, of course, but he's also a like oceanic, like, I mean, I was gonna say just like a what's the right word? Like,
Advocate,
he's advocate, but I mean, he's also an explorer. I think at one point, I don't know if this is still the case, but I think he had the record for like the deepest any human being has ever gone into the ocean, when he was doing some
one
Mariana
point,
Trench. Yeah. And I think that, I don't know, like, it's one of those things where it feels very, I don't know that they're hiding the environmental message of this, right? The characters flat out say like, oh, these whales are more intelligent than us. They're a longer living culture.
Mm-hmm.
They've evolved past like war to absolute pacifism. They create some of the songs and the stories that even surpass our own. And then they're just sort of like hunted down for their the one thing that they can provide, which, to be fair, I mean, we do with the animals on our planet. And
right. No, absolutely.
And I think that's, I think that, there's probably, I mean, realistically, people are probably not going to make that connection, but at a certain point, I don't know, it almost feels like willful to not make that type of connection, right?
Yeah,
at a certain point, because it's not like he's hiding it,
No, he's not hiding it, but it's taking place on another planet to magical whales, not here on Earth to, the actual whales we have. And yeah, I make that connection. I hope others make that. I'm sure others do. Some others do, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that connection is super strong, but you're right, Will. Maybe that would be too ham-fisted and heavy.
I mean, we could have had a moment where Jake Sully looks at the screen and is like, this happens on so many planets. You wouldn't believe how humanity acts towards wildlife.
This is exactly what humanity did.
This is happening
stuff on
everywhere. Humanity destroyed all the animals of Earth by doing this. We need to be careful.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and that's why I think that, like, these are, if this was a more alien creature, because there's some of the different animals on Pandora, some of them are like have an analog where you can say, okay, this is sort of canine-like, this is sort of this. These are very whale-like. These are not, they don't veer too dramatically off from what a whale generally looks like. They have like, oh, they've got this plating thing, and they've got, they've got some things, but you can basically say it's like, what type of animal is it? It's like a whale with. So knowing that, and knowing that we have like a whaling industry on our own, planet here, I think he tried to make it as direct a line without having to have that, like, like you mentioned, Brad, like here's what happened.
Here's a question I have, and I know we're running down on time and we need to get to plugs, so I'll be brief. How did the whales communicate? I know they did their hand signal language to the whales and they would talk to them audibly. But the only response the whales seemed to give was like moving their eyes. They didn't even have fucking whale song.
That had to be telepathic.
So was it telepathic communication?
I believe it was.
That wasn't explained.
I don't remember. Yeah.
I don't think it was fully, I don't think it was outright explained, but it was.
He didn't like link up with his tail with the whale.
Yeah, because that didn't happen until later.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was through like I don't think it was like telepathic. I think it was either through like sounds or like the movements, because I did see him moving his eye in a very specific way, and then they used that same like this is our like translation language as they did with the hand signals. So I kind of took it as something with the eyes, but I could be wrong.
So, yeah, I don't know. Like the eyes were following the person, but the eyes weren't like up, up, down, down, left, left, right, right to like communicate something. Like it just seemed like
Hold up,
looking
I
at
just
his
unlocked a
eyes.
new character.
Use
For
that
those that
contra
don't
code.
know,
Could we have been
just
more
did the
video
Konami
game
code.
like?
I do want to talk because I know I think we've talked about the story enough. You know, we know where we land on that, and I know you're right. We do have plugs, but we haven't really doubled back around to some of the 3D stuff, and I feel like we should talk about that. So the first one I would say was a masterpiece of 3D. In fact, I would say that it was sort of the litmus test of like what 3D could be for the longest time. I feel like this one, certainly there were elements that really, really popped. There were parts of this that felt really good in 3D. But there was one scene in particular that I had to take my glasses off for. And it was, it's when Quaritch, the Stephen Lang character, when he's first waking up inside the Avatar body and he's like laying on a table and there's some doctors like standing over him and he starts kind of flailing, and behind the doctors' heads as they're looking over is that one bright like medical light that's shining over him, and as they're moving and holding him and trying to do all of that, their heads keep going in front of it, and I kept getting this like weird thing where like it would snap in and snap out and snap in, and so I actually took my glasses off and looked away until he got off the table because that light behind them was just hurting me.
Yeah. I know what you mean, Will. For me with the 3D, 3D tires out my eyes. I love VR, and VR is really great with like 3D effects and stuff, but I can only play VR stuff for a couple hours at a time before my eyes just get really tired. And that happened to me with this movie. After the first like 2.5 hours, of watching in 3D, I actually started getting a headache, which is the same thing if I'm in VR too long. Not only that, but the high frame rate, because it kept going in and out and in and out, it was like making me motion sick in a way. And so every time that it would do that, like that funky feeling in my stomach would just come back, and not good.
Yeah, I generally have weird problems with the 3D too, because I have a weird vision issue with my eyes where I kind of see double of everything unless I have my corrective lenses on. So I have to wear my lenses and the 3D glasses. Brad, you had mentioned at the beginning of the film that you thought it was going to be dark, because I think that was just for the trailers, though. Some of the trailers. So here's a question about 3D. So we got at least 3 trailers, I think, that were given to us in 3D in front of this movie, this 3D movie. I don't know. I think it was Mario,
Ant-Man.
Mario movie, Ant-Man, Quantum Mania, and I think there was another one. I forget.
Oh, you got Mario. Interesting. I didn't have that one.
Yeah. And I'm like, are all these movies coming out in 3D? Have I been missing a lot of 3D like or intentionally steering away from 3D movies? I don't recall there have been that many 3D movies until this one.
There have been I think that the big blockbustery ones are still doing 3D, but it hasn't really been like you gotta see this thing in 3D or else you're missing something, So for the most part, it's made it really easy for me over the years to shift over to a 2D sort of default. I don't know. I wish I'd chosen the 2D here. That said, there's one thing I do want to call out, and you just sort of mentioned it to a degree. One of the biggest problems I have with 3D is because of the way that they film it and the way that they project it. It tends to be very dark. And so sometimes 3D can be hard to see, especially if it's like a post-conversion 3D. This never had that problem for me. Like everything felt crisp and clear and clean. It was really just, I didn't have as much of an issue with the HFR stuff, but I did have like whenever there was light sort of in parallax behind stuff, like that one scene, those were moments where I felt the eye strain. But I at least appreciated that this was designed to be seen in 3D, not, like, let's slap some 3D on after the fact, which was a big trend for a while.
Yeah.
It's interesting you had that experience, Will, because I will say, at least in our showing, and maybe it was, I don't know, something about Galaxy's DFX. I'm not sure, but I took my glasses off several times and noticed how much brighter it was with my glasses off. So, I think they tried to correct for some of that
They
happening.
should. That's a fact. They
Right.
should do that.
Right. But I mean, there were still scenes where, like, it wasn't like Game of Thrones dark or anything, but I mean, there's like nighttime scenes where things are happening where it's just like, it's really dark. And this is like at the end of the movie in a battle, and like there's a lake of fire all around them. Things should be much more brightly lit, but like we're looking at something really dark. And it wasn't enough that I was like, fuck 3D. I hate 3D so much. But I definitely was like taking the glasses off just to see if there was a difference. And I think it's just a limitation of the technology. I think there's only so much they can do to try and correct for some of that. So, I don't know what the answer is, but I kind of wish we'd seen it in 2D.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to whether this movie will spark another like 3D essence, for big movies, because it seemed to have faded out, and I was totally okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And now it may be back, so maybe there's choices to be made for movies coming up, whether we see them in 3D or intentionally do not see them in 3D. For this movie, I didn't mind it so much. I think it did lend to this movie. There was a lot of scenes. There's flying scenes, there's underwater scenes, and so forth. I did have an issue a little bit with the third act. I thought it was a little like drawn out, because there was a great part of the third act kind of right after the whale killing, where there was a really cool water battle kind of scene going on, and boats were getting flung around by whales and flipped over rocks and shit like that. I thought that was really, really cool, and there was a lot of cool action set. That was a very nice action set piece. But then we got into like a whole nother thing where the main ship is sinking,
Mm-hmm.
and I think one of the daughters gets tied to the rail about 14 times. And cut.
You mean the sequence where Rose was handcuffed to the table and the room was like filling up with water?
Yeah.
Oh no,
Yeah.
wait, wrong movie.
Well, no, but I mean, they even made a joke about it in the movie, like, "Oh, I'm tied to the rail again," and it seemed very drawn out. That whole, Poseidon adventure. I mean, there was even like a Shelley Duvall, like, I got to swim from this chamber to this chamber and hold my breath, thing. So I definitely think that was James Cameron's, like, one of James Cameron's, ode to Poseidon Adventure. He probably had a few in Titanic too.
I was going to say it felt way more Titanic to me than it did Poseidon.
Well, because
Adventure.
yeah.
Although what I
Poseidon
needed
Adventure's the big daddy, though.
What I needed in Titanic was for a whaler to have his arm sliced off by a cable. That's what I need more of.
That's right.
I was
awesome.
so excited to see that captain get his comeuppance, but then I found out after the movie that he's in the next one. So he's not
the
dead.
one.
Interesting. Captain. So he's going to be like a one-armed, like a kind of an Ahabby
with a hook.
Guy.
He's going to have a hook.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know what he'll have in place of his arm, but yeah,
a rocket launcher.
It was breaking my heart that they had Jermaine Clement have to do all that bad scientist stuff. He didn't like doing it, obviously. I think he had some personal objections to the stuff that he was doing. The question is, how much were they forcing him to do it or not? As a scientist. But it was breaking my heart to see him do that stuff with the whales.
We'll close things off here with a comment from Kevin, who's in chat. Hey, Kevin, again. Kevin says, overall, it was well made, and the creative direction was nice, too. And yeah, that's a good point, Kevin. At the end of the day, it's a movie. It was entertaining. It did some cool things visually. I think, as evidenced by Jim and Will, a lot of people really like it. But it's not perfect, like any movie. I think it has its foibles. I'm just so exhausted of being told that, like, I'm a dumb moviegoer for not liking all the things this movie did.
Don't
I've
listen
seen
to
it
those
on
people.
I've seen it on Facebook a lot. I made a comment
Don't
about it
listen to 'em.
being Avatar: The Met of Water, and I just got jumped on. Uh, and one person who, I mean, he's my friend, but he's a fucking film snob, and it drives me crazy. He literally was like, "Well, you probably just didn't really understand what the director was trying to do. Maybe if you watch some interviews and educate yourself a little
You
bit,
need to go
you'll have
read
a
this
better
thread.
understanding."
Let me step in real quick because I'm someone who did like this movie a lot more than you, Brad. And I take issue with that statement because this movie to me, I love. It's creative. It felt fresh. It was narratively interesting, but it wasn't deep. It's not like it had things to say, but it wasn't like a puzzle box of a movie that you didn't understand. You didn't like it for the reasons you didn't say, and that's totally okay. It would be boring as fuck if all of our lists were the exact same. For me, like at the end of the year, one of us is going to have we're still here. One of us is going to have Top Gun on our top list, and one of us is going to have Avatar: Way of Water, and that's okay that we both kind of found
Yeah.
different big budget pictures, and one of us is going to have this drama, and one of us is going to have this other drama. That's totally okay. Like there are bad faith reasons to not like or not like a movie, but there is not a problem with liking or disliking a movie on its face. So yeah, I think that's something that everyone needs to understand. Throw these fucking buzzwords out of the words. Stop. Everyone listening. Here's a quick soapbox. If someone likes a movie that you don't, it's great. Don't think that they're trying to watch a dumbed down movie because it's not it's not highbrow enough for you. Like vice versa, don't call a movie pretentious because it's not your cup of tea. These are things that are just like nonsensical non-critiques. Like it or don't like it for its own reasons.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, on that note, let's move on to some things that we love that we hope other people will love too. This is the plugs part of the show. And let's go to Will to kick this one off. Will, what have you got for plugs this week?
Let's see. Let's go with. I'm actually debating between three because I ended up having a really good day of movies the other day. I'll talk about one that is mainly because I'm interested in Jim eventually watching this one. So because I think you'd like this one. I caught EO this week. EO is a movie about a donkey. It's like a Polish movie, and it's it's a movie about basically this donkey is your main protagonist, and not like a talking donkey or like a whimsical donkey. It's just a donkey. It's just a donkey that was sort of in this like circus act, and some people protest that it's being used, and it sort of ends up getting shipped and moved around all of these different places. And so you're just following this donkey, and he's meeting like all of these like good and bad people along the way. And again, you keep sort of projecting humanity onto this donkey, like, oh yeah, that donkey wants to be free. Oh, that donkey doesn't like this, but it's just a donkey. They're not, and the way that they're shooting the donkey, there's no like or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty like, I don't know, scathing critique of just like how much like people take like the animals around us for granted, and just some of the the cruelty and some of the joys that humanity can bring to each other, just sort of seen through this impartial lens. Jim, knowing the type of movies that you like, I am very sure that this is one that you'll be interested in. And plus it's an 88-minute movie. So it also kind of gets in and gets out with what it's doing, which is also good. But yeah, it's EO. It's in theaters now. It's it's obviously not at every multiplex, but it's out there. And I
did see the trailer a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is a movie I'm probably not going to get to see till halfway through 2023. I can tell because there's been, what was the movie about the pigs?
Oh, it was like Gunta or something like
yeah, Gunta.
yeah.
This seems very much kind of in that vein, and I'm all for it. I'm ready to see this film.
Yeah, imagine that, but with more of a. So I think Gunto was more of like a fly on the wall style story.
Yeah, cinema
This
verite.
one,
Uh-huh.
yeah, since this one follows like they're like the character, like there
There are
are like
people in it.
actors around
Yeah.
it, and you're kind of following those. It doesn't. It feels like it has more propulsion, but it's still. I mean, it sits on the same shelf as that. So yeah, I think you would like this one, Jim. I think a lot of other viewers would too, but Jim, specifically you. And I was watching this, and I'm like, yeah, this one Jim's got to watch.
Okay, we'll talk, and hopefully I'll get a chance to see it at some point, either in theaters or when it comes around. Awesome, Will.
All right.
Glad you liked it.
Sweet. Thanks so much, Will. Appreciate that. Jim, what's your plug?
Yeah, I saw a movie that I've been wanting to see called Empire of Light. This is a Sam Mendes directed movie, believe it or not. Director of James Bond films and Road to Perdition. It was written and directed by Sam Mendes. This is pretty much a drama. I mean, it is a straight up drama about. It says it's about the power of human connection during turbulent times. It's set in an English coastal town in a movie theater, like an old, one of the old style movie theaters where they basically have one big auditorium. Think they're the Paramount in Austin, right? Similar to something like that. And the people who are running it, specifically one character, and I forget what her name is, Hillary, played by Olivia Colman, who, man, everything she does has been great, and I think this might be her best role yet, or best performance yet. And she's already won an Oscar, so I'm looking forward to see her nominated again. All the performances here are great. Toby Jones is in this, who I always like to see, and he even has a couple of great scenes. So yeah, I love this movie because it's about movies. It's not really about movies. It's really about the people who are working in this movie theater and the different issues that they have and how they make connections and struggle sometimes. It's like I said, it's set in the early 1980s when movies like Chariots of Fire were screening. I love this movie. This movie was also shot by help me out, Will.
Deakins.
Yeah, Roger Deakins.
Roger
And
Deakins.
it looks gorgeous. Yeah, I loved it. I'd recommend it. It's in theaters right now. I'd say if you could see it in a theater, do it. It's called Empire of Light. It kind of blew me away. I loved it.
Yeah, Olivia Colman is one of those actresses who I feel like she could act the phone book. And this movie proves that. Like, she is just so incredibly good here. And I would be surprised if, it's always hard to kind of predict, like, what's going to happen come award time, whatever. But, like, this definitely feels like the type of performance. Like, it has big moments that would be, like, awards bait as well. So yeah, I co-sign. Olivia Colman at this point can do absolutely no wrong.
Will, I'll read your review that's on the website, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit.
Let's do that.
Okay. Brad, what do you
got? Well, I have been playing around a lot with an AI over the last few days.
A bot.
And the AI is my plug. It's chat.openai.com. And what I've been doing with it is I like writing myself into fictional movies or TV shows with this chat AI. So I just gave it a prompt, and I'm going to read you what it came out with.
Yes,
ready?
Yes, please.
I told it to write a movie where Jim, Brad, and Will go to see a movie about a donkey that can fly. Right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Jim, Brad, and Will are three best friends who love going to the movies on the weekends. One day, they hear about a new film called The Fabulous Flying Donkey and decide to check it out. As they sit in the theater, the lights dim and the film begins. They're in their happy place. The story follows a young donkey named Denny, who has always dreamed of being able to fly. Despite the teasing and ridicule of his fellow donkeys, Denny is determined to make his dream a reality. With the help of a wise old owl and a kind-hearted tightrope walker from a nearby circus, Denny sets out on a journey to find a way to fly. Along the way, he meets a variety of colorful characters and learns valuable lessons about perseverance, self-belief, and the power of magical friendship. As the movie comes to a close, Brad, Jim, and Will are on the edge of their seats, cheering as loud as they can as Denny finally takes to the sky. When the credits roll, the three friends are left hugging in their sense of inspiration and hope, and they can't wait to share the heartwarming tale of the flying donkey with their friends and family.
Wow.
So for everyone, next week's episode, we're going to be reviewing this new movie that we saw over the weekend. It had us at the edge of our seats and just like hugging each other in joy. It's called the Fabulous Flying Donkey.
The Fabulous Flying Donkey.
The Fabulous Flying Donkey. Guys, I mean, this one's one for the ages. I mean,
I would watch
feel
that movie. Like I would watch
I'd
the
watch
fuck
it.
out of that movie.
Yeah, I
Right?
mean, it
Just some of the
feels
things
like-
that this AI comes up with, though, like the hugging part, right? And
I
And,
didn't
uh,
tell
like,
it we were best friends. I
being
just,
in our quote unquote being our happy place with movies, like it's uncanny. sometimes.
I wonder if this gosh, like, you remember that Dumbo movie, the Tim Burton Dumbo movie?
yes.
I almost
God.
feel like I would rather watch The Fabulous Flying Donkey than watch that.
Oh, 100%, Will, 100%. You know I hated that movie, so
yeah.
Oh, goodness. Anyway, the AI is great. You can use it for so many things, but I've been having it like write me into episodes of Thundercats. And I had it write me into an episode of Thundercats where the Sword of Omens chose me as the new leader of the Thundercats. I didn't
Uh-huh.
tell it to, but the Sword of Omens came to me and Lion-O left in despair. It was kind of awesome. So anyway, I think it's really interesting how this technology works and what it's able to pull out and put together. And I've probably fed at least 100 different prompts into this thing.
I know
and
you've been
laughed my
playing with
ass
this
off.
thing all through the weekend and into the week. So, Will, one of the things we did is we played around and had it plug in like our occupations and our company,
Oh, yeah.
and it basically wrote like what could be your self-assessment review.
Oh,
Like, yeah, like if you struggle with like your self-assessment, get this thing, plug in a few prompts about your job, and it will spit out your self-assessment. Maybe what you might have to do a couple minor edits or add a few details, but I'll tell you what, it's uncanny what it can do.
now, Brad, you don't have
'Cause
to.
I hate
answer
doing
out-
that assessment shit.
Oh yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah,
You don't have
yeah.
to answer it right out loud, Brad, but just blink twice if you've written any spicy stories with it.
I'll answer you outright. I've written some very spicy stories with it.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
it's limited there though, right?
Well, it is limited. It will tell you that it can't write offensive content, but I
Uh-huh.
told it to write a story about two hairy, chubby men who fall in love and share their
Who wants
affection
to read that
publicly.
shit?
Well, it came out with a pretty spicy story where they were like making out half naked on a park bench, and people were watching as they walked by and were getting steamy. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Ooh,
So
okay.
more like soft core.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
like
yeah.
like Skinamax at best.
But here's the
Exactly.
thing. I did
Late
not
night.
use the word bear. Okay. But one of the first sentences was like, there was a man named Jack who was very chubby and very hairy. He often thought of himself as a total bear. And I'm like, how the fuck does it know what gay bears are? Okay.
Oh, it knows. It's read. It's read what we've all written. It's incorporated that.
Yeah.
It knows. It learns.
Apparently. Anyway,
That's
have some fun with it. You do have to sign up with an email address. So, you may want a burner email or something you can toss in there. But after that, like, you can throw as many things at it as you want. So see what you can come up with.
awesome.
All right. Well,
Here
I think
we
that
are.
brings us to a close. Yeah. It's been a fun episode, guys. Nice kicking off a new era of the Movie Bears podcast with you. This is our first show since
A
our
new
10-year
decade.
anniversary. A new decade.
A new
of the show,
of the show.
not
Of the show.
necessarily, in real life. But just wanted to say thank you to everybody that was in the live chat tonight. We had a few comments in there. A lot of people, I think, are really busy with the holidays right now, so maybe catching up with our review after they see Avatar: The Way of Water over the holiday period. So we are not recording next week, FYI, because the holidays. We're taking that week off. So from the Movie Bears podcast, happy holidays, be safe, have fun, and we'll see you all in the new year. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year.
Bye-bye, everyone. MBP. The way of MBP has no beginning and no end.
We're getting the fuck out of here.